Hey everyone, welcome back. I wanted to walk you through adding your own new custom layouts within the macros that I created and have made available for free. It's for controlling the SuperSource feature of some of the higher end ATEM switchers from Blackmagic Design. I've made the software available for free, and it's designed for you to make your own changes to it. So I'm going to kind of walk you through some of those. I'm not going to go through the steps of actually installing the JustMacros software that's used to do this or anything like that. There are other videos and other resources on for how to do that. Nor am I going to show you how to install my code into JustMacros. There are instructions for that within the download itself, so you don't necessarily need me to show you how to do that. It's basically just a matter of downloading the zip file and then copying files from that into your macros folder. So that said, let's actually get into the code and create our own macro. So we'll take a look here. Here is the code window, and while I'm talking, just put my image up there so you can actually see me. So this file, these djatemfunc.atemluascript.com, I'm going to be editing it here in this text editor. It's called Notepad++. It's a little bit better editor than the one that's built into JustMacros. A little easier to get around in. So I'm using it to do this editing, but you could do the editing directly within the JustMacros software itself on the macros page. So a few things to take note of here. So first of all, there's this line up here. It says num layout. This is basically the number of different layouts that are defined within the file, and the software needs to know that so that it knows what to wrap around when it gets to the end. So after you've reached layout number 26, and you press the button to go to the next one, it knows to go back around to layout number 1, technically 0, but that number is used in order to make sure that you can cycle through the available layouts. So if you don't adjust that, either you won't be able to get to your macro. Say, for example, this says 26 and you set your macro as number 27. You'll never be able to get to it. And if you set that number higher than the number of macros that are in there, you're going to have a bunch that don't actually do anything. So make sure that that number accurately reflects the number of macros that are within the software. So we're going to be adding one layout as part of this demo. So I'm going to go ahead and change that number from 26 to 27. Okay. All right. And while we're here, I'll also mention a couple other things. So there's this thing here, it's called ease factor. That's basically a number that controls how quickly the boxes ramp up and ramp down their speed. So as I do some of the transitions here, you see that it accelerates both from a starting point and decelerates into the stopping point. So it's a smooth transition. And that number, that 1 point, is currently 1.5 in this file, controls basically how fast it ramps up and how quickly it ramps down. So if you want it to speed up a little bit faster, you can increase that number. Or if you want it to be a little bit more smooth, you can lower that number a little bit. So, all right, so that's where that is. And then a couple other ones here. So some of the transitions that I've defined within the file, I define as long, so I want them to take a long time, and then I have some that are short. And these numbers here, the units are kind of arbitrary here. It's just a delay, but how much delay it does between different steps as it's moving boxes from one place to another. So the long transition, it's doing it's 90 steps from the start to the end. And the short transition is doing 30 steps from the beginning. 30 steps from the beginning to the end. So if you want the transition to take less time or more time, you can increase or decrease those numbers. So you'll also see references to those throughout the code, and feel free to swap one out for the other if you find that some of the transitions would maybe be better for your situation with either a longer or a shorter transition time. So we're going to move down a little bit here. So the actual function that we're going to be modifying is this set SuperSource layout. And I'll go ahead and go full screen here so you can see a little better. But this is the function that actually defines all the different layouts that are used within the script. My old version of this script was a lot harder to really see what was going on, so I've greatly simplified things quite a bit here. Let's go to layout number 2. So this one's kind of a good generic, easy to recognize what's going on. So I should mention that the layouts start at 0. So if you look up here, layout 0 is actually the first one. Like pretty much everything in computers, everything starts at 0. So layout 2 here is actually shown. It's actually the third layout within the system. Okay, all right, so first thing we want to do is we want to define a layout name. So we just say a layout name equals, and then in double quotes we put the name. So that's displayed within the JustMacros software in the log at the bottom of the screen. So that's the only place it's used, but it's very helpful if you're trying to select a layout at a time when it can't be visually presented. Say for example, it's currently already on program. You're trying to cycle through to find another layout. You can look at that section of the screen in order to see what layout is currently selected. All right, the next line here is basically the number of boxes that are going to be included as part of that layout. So if we're doing a 2-box layout, we would set 2. If it's a 3-box layout, we're doing 3. The SuperSource feature itself actually has 4 boxes that you can use, and you can use 1, 2, 3, or 4 for any of your layouts. Set box. So this is actually the first line of code where we're defining where one of the boxes is going to be on screen. So the first number here, this 1, is basically which box. So 1, 2, 3, or 4 that we're defining. The second box is the size. So in this case, it's 0.60. What that means is that the box is going to be 60% the width and height of the screen. So it's not 60% the area, it's 60% the width and height. So we'll take up 60% the width and 60% the height. All right, the next number we have here is a center position horizontally. So we might call this the X position. The ATEM switchers use a coordinate system that's kind of based on 16 by 9. So the center of the screen is actually 0, 0. So 0 for horizontal and 0 for vertical. The left side of the screen is a -16, and the right side of the screen is a +16. And in the vertical space, again, 0 is middle, 9 is the top, and then -9 is the bottom. So anytime you're trying to position something on screen, make sure you use those units. So if you want it to be centered halfway between the center of the screen and the left edge of the screen, you would set that to a -8, because that's half of -16, right? So that's basically what you need to know in order to set these values. So, and these represent the center of the box, not the upper left corner, as we typically associate with graphics in computer programming. So keep in mind that that's the center position and not the upper left. So this third parameter, it's there, that's the horizontal position or X position. The next number here is the Y position or vertical. Again, 0 is centered top to bottom. And then these last 4 represent the cropping, how much the image is going to be cropped. So if you look at my image on screen right now, you'll see that the left and right portions of the image have been cropped off. And that's actually done with these numbers here. So it's left crop, right crop, top crop, and bottom crop. And again, that's based on this 16 by 9 numbering system. So 10 is going to be chopping off 10 16ths of the left side of the image. So that's what 5/8. Going to be chopping off the left 5/8 of the image, and also the right 5/8 of the image, because both of those numbers are 10. Now, so with that said, we've got another box here. This box is 80% of the full size. It's actually slightly off to the right, so it's 1.6 horizontally, just right of center. And the Y position is 0, and then there is no cropping on it. So that's basically fairly similar to the image that we're looking at now on screen, although it's not the exact layout that we're looking at. So, all right, so if we're going to create our own, what we need to do is we need to scroll down near the bottom. So there's a line here that says add your own layouts right here above the full layout. So the last 4 layouts that are in the file, currently 22, 23, 24, and 25. These are full screen layouts that for just a single video source. And these are used by some of the new functionality that I put into these macros. So for those two new buttons, I think the coolest ones, where it takes the program and does a transition from program to SuperSource, trying to move the program in a box. And so what it does is it basically takes whatever's in program, assigns it to one of the boxes, goes full screen with that box, and then does the motion from that into the layout that you had previously selected. So these last 4, 22, 23, 24, and 25, they always need to be the last 4. If you add your own, those numbers are going to change. So if I add my own layout, I'm going to add my own layout at slot number 23, and what was, or sorry, number 22, and what was previous 22 is now going to become 23, and then you have to increase the numbers of all of them down below. So let's actually just go ahead. We'll copy the existing layout 21 here. So I'll go ahead and grab a copy of that, copy it to my clipboard, and then we'll paste it in above 21. Now before I forget, I'm just going to go ahead and modify the number. So that's 22, and then again we have to modify all the ones below. So 22 becomes 23, 23 becomes 24, 24 becomes 25, and 25 becomes 26. So now we've actually already added a layout, and if we save this file and we actually start cycling through the SuperSource, it would already show up. Unfortunately though, because it's the same as the previous one, we wouldn't necessarily notice that it was new because it's doing the exact same thing as the one before. So just for the sake of discussion, we're going to do one that has sources 1 and 2 on screen, and we'll take source number 1 and make it really, really skinny, and then we'll have source 2 basically be the full image just shrunk down a little bit. So we're going to call this 1, 2 demo. This one has 2 boxes, so we'll leave the num box set to 2, and then we're going to want to use boxes 1 and 2, so we're going to go ahead and change those parameters. I'll go for full screen with this so you guys can see a little bit better what's going on. Alright, so we set boxes 1 and 2. First one, this is going to be source number 1. Again, we want to shrink that down, so let's go ahead and do 0.8. So it's 80%. It's going to be 80% the height, and we're going to do some cropping, so it's not really going to be 80% the width. But we need to modify the position, so we'll go like -12. -12 for the X, 0 for the Y, and then we need to get pretty aggressive on the cropping, so we'll do a 12 and a 12 for the left and right crop, and then we don't need any vertical cropping, so we'll go ahead and leave those as 0. Alright, for source number 2, box number 2, we need to shrink that down as well, so let's make that 0.8, so it's 80% the width and height. Position, it just needs to be a little bit right of center, so let's say something like 3. Change the Y to 0, and then we're going to change the cropping to 0, 0. So, again, we got box number 1, 80% size, position 12 out of 16 from between left edge and horizontal center. It's going to be actually on vertical center. So we can just get rid of those decimals. It's going to be cropped, so 12 out of 16 on the left, and then 12 out of 16 on the right, and then 0 out of 9 for both the top and bottom. Now box 2, that's going to be, again, 80%. The horizontal position is going to be 3 out of 16 between center and right edge, 0 for the vertical, and then no cropping whatsoever, so 0, 0, 0, 0 for all 4 cropping parameters. So unfortunately, the system that I'm editing on right now is not actually the system that is connected to my button here, so I can't really show you guys what that would do, but I'll leave that as an exercise for you to try out on your own. So yeah, so modifying these actually isn't too bad. It's not too difficult. You just need to make sure that the layout numbers that are in that function are still sequential, and that the total number of layouts is correct at the top of the file. So where you see the num layouts equal, make sure that always reflects the number of layouts that are in this set layout function. So okay, move on. So there's a couple other things in here as well. Might not necessarily want to modify them, but they're certainly potentially interesting as well. So in my demo video that I did, I showed you that I had set up a few buttons on my controller. So buttons here, these 7, these are actually presets. So these store basically the index of the current layout, so they can, for later recall. So you say, I like layouts 2, 4, and 9. You can save those in your preset buttons, and this function is actually what's doing that. In the documentation for this, I show you how to set up the buttons in order to call this function. But what's inside here, you can see that it's checking to see if the shift button is held down, and if it is, it's basically saying what's the last layout that the person selected, and then let's go ahead and save that to the environment variables, which is the storage that's available within JustMacros. If the shift key is not held down, this is the code that's actually running in order to do the transition from whatever's currently on screen to the selected layout. Alright, so this saves SuperSource data that's internal as is init SuperSource arrays. Alright, do SuperSource transition. So, but this is the code that's actually doing the work to transition from one layout to another. So it figures out where the boxes currently are, where they need to be, and then does the math in order to do the smooth motion from one location to another. You probably won't call that directly necessarily from your own code, but that's the function that's actually doing that. Scroll down a little bit further. SuperSource box 1 to full and SuperSource box 2 to full. Those are functions that you would call directly from JustMacros, and those allow you to do a transition from multiple boxes to full screen layout. Basically, the first one uses box 1 as the source that's going to go full screen, and the second one uses box 2 as the source to go full screen. Alright, so down below, transition SuperSource to preview. These two functions, there's this one and the one below it, transition program to SuperSource. These are actually the ones that do that cool feature where it takes whatever's currently on program and figures out a way to incorporate a transition in order to get you to a SuperSource layout, and the reverse. So whatever's currently on, what SuperSource is currently on preview, if basically does a transition. So anyway, you can watch my other video for the demo on that. I'm not necessarily going to go into detail here because I've already covered that. But those are the two functions that actually do that work. Now the last one here down at the bottom, adjust SuperSource border. This is one, again, you can call from buttons from your X keys controller, and it's used to adjust the width of the border. And basically you pass in a value that you want to use to increase or decrease. For my demo, I actually set that to 0.02 so that the changes in border width are actually very subtle. So you press the button a lot of times and you see a fairly small change. If you wanted to tweak that, you certainly could. It also detects if the shift key is being held down, and if it is, then it decreases the size of the border instead of increasing the size of the border. So you can call this script from one of your buttons as well. So that's kind of the gist of it. So there's more instructions in the download as well. So make sure you read that document thoroughly from top to bottom, because it does cover what all the different functions that are meant to be called are for, and it does have some brief instructions on how to do your own layout as well. So if you haven't already downloaded this, be sure and go to djp.li/supersource2 to get it. It's totally free. I don't expect any sort of payment or any sort of compensation for my work. I'm just putting it out there as something that might be useful for other people. It's something that I found extremely useful for a lot of the jobs that I've done. It's really nice, for example, in business conferences to be able to do a transition from a PowerPoint to the speaker, or be able to put them both on screen and do cool transitions between those. And with this code, I'm able to do that with single button presses on my controller. So anyway, if you guys have some questions, please don't hesitate to ask in the comment section down below, but I do ask that you keep them very specific and very concise. I have a lot going on. I'm working the equivalent of about 4 full-time jobs, and so I don't have a ton of time to do research for people in order to solve problems, unfortunately. So I wish I did, but I just don't. So, but anyway, maybe you get some help from that community as well. There are quite a few software developers here that follow this channel, and that's one of the reasons that I'm putting this out there, because there are so many other people that would understand how this stuff works and can offer some assistance. So anyway, so if you're interested in more of this sort of content, please let me know. I will be doing more videos about software related things in the future with the new series that I'm doing with Witty Film Girl, where we're talking about some of the more introductory things. I now feel a little bit more free to focus more on some more technical things as part of the other videos on my channel, because those fundamentals will be covered a little bit more in that other series. So software related things are certainly things that I'm open to doing and covering here on the channel as well. So if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Please also share these videos with others who might be interested, and also be sure to hit the like button. That's always very helpful for YouTube, for recommending to other people. We're really trying to grow this channel. We're getting very, very, very aggressive about that over the next little while. We're trying to get a lot more viewers. We know that there's a lot of people out there who are searching for this material, and we think that we can really be of help to a lot of people who are just getting into video production. And so we really appreciate sharing these videos with other people, posting them on social media, sharing with friends, sharing with coworkers, those kinds of things. So Also, if you're watching this video, I know you're fairly technical, and so maybe the website that I've created, crewaccess.com, would be something that would be interesting to you. I've been doing software development for well over 40 years at this point, 35 years professionally. And as I was rebuilding my video production business a few years ago, I found that there weren't very many software tools out there for trying to manage the business. So basically I created my own, and I used it with me and my crew without making it public for over 2 years before I actually launched it publicly a year and a half ago. And it's available out there for other people to use. I've even got a free version for those who don't have a budget to cover that kind of thing. But yeah, so it covers all sorts of the aspects of running your business, from keeping track of your events and the crew that you've hired for those events, to your equipment, to your finances, your contacts. There's a cool worksheet feature in there that helps you to collect all the information that you need for an event, make sure that you show up with the right equipment in order to pull it off, those kinds of things. Make sure that the client actually knows that you care about the quality of the production, and that it's very helpful to reassure them that you know what you're doing, and that when the day of the event actually arrives, that you're going to be able to pull it off and do a good job of it. So lots of cool stuff there, and constantly adding new things to it as well. So again, there's a free version, but I also have some paid versions that are a lot more feature packed and reduce some of the limitations that the free version has. So go check it out at crewaccess.com. Appreciate you using the link for that. So, all right, I think that's about it. I think I've probably rambled on long enough, but thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for watching the channel. Appreciate it. Again, we're trying to grow this, so anything you can do to help with that would be very much appreciated. So thanks again, and have a great day.